If you're listening to this, you love heavy music or are curious and want to know more. I'm your host, Scandalous, here to talk all things God Forbid, a legendary metal band with their drummer, Corey Pierce, Insta friends forever, and we're just now talking more than just messages, but live. Corey, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so glad. I just told you off air that I'm like nursing the worst hangover I've ever had in my entire life. So I'm so glad you're not like feeling that with me. I'm so happy for you. That is good.
Yeah, I've taken my drinking down quite a bit, honestly. I used to drink a lot, like a lot of whiskey all the time, every day. So now I've kind of slowed it down a bit. I do smoke a lot of weed, but that's kind of like, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, when I was kind of first starting to go to shows, that was like during the Jaeger tour days. So that's when, if you were on a Jaeger tour, if you happen to be backstage, all the Jaeger you want, and it's free and it's just everywhere. And like, oh, so that, when I was younger, it's just like Jaeger. Oh.
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. I can't drink that stuff anymore, even if I wanted to. Too much. I had too much of it.
It's a lot. Well, now like I've been doing this thing where like I won't drink for a few weeks and then I'll go out drinking and you just never know where you're going to end up. So it's hilarious. So you just, who knows? It's a surprise to me. I have no idea. We'll see where we end up. I don't know, man. We'll see.
You're living life crazy. I'm living life pretty reserved at this point. Like most of my time is spent, in the house at this point. I go out a little bit, go out to a show here or there. I go out to the front yard and like putt balls in my putting green in the front yard. I'm in here with the drums most of the time. So.
Oh, there you go. Well, is that like one of your favorite things about living in Vegas now? You can go putt in your front yard?
It's one of the things. I mean, it's just a happy accident. It wasn't something I planned on, but Vegas is cool. It can be a very like quiet and sort of mild place when you're outside the strip in the city and whatnot. And I'm not like a big gambler either. So it's like, a lot of the flashes and lights it doesn't draw me in. So it's like, I'm just kind of chilling on the outskirts in the suburbs. And it's like quiet and stuff. Like my neighborhood's super quiet.
Nice.
Yeah. I walk around the back streets at like 5, like I practice for a while, then like walk around the neighborhood a little bit and like just chill out. But I mean, there's always some shit to get into. Don't get me wrong. Like literally you can get drunk and fucked up anywhere around here. Like there's a place less than 10 minutes walking from my house called Skinny Dugan's. Okay. And this place is like old school. Like they still got like that wood paneling on the walls and shit. Like it's like 15 people at the bar playing quiz games, smoking cigarettes. Like it's chain smoking. Like you're like, damn, this place is grimy, but you can go in there 24 hours a day and get as fucked up as you like, you know what I mean? And like the lights are all dim and shit. It's all dark in there all the time. I go in there on occasion just to grab a couple beers because it's so close. But it's just funny when you go in, there's like a completely different vibe. It's like you walked into the 70s show, but the like R-rated version and shit.
I mean, so you're just living your best life then. I mean, everything's so PC now. And I live in Austin. So we love PC things in Austin, so it can be a little sterile sometimes. So that just sounds like the opposite version of like sterile PC.
Austin is sterile and PC. Friendly. What happened to the gang violence?
That is why I've lived like where I've lived. Like I live in like a chill street. I'm good. I've lived in the same spot for like the past 4 years and I love it. It's just chill, relax. I can go walk my dogs at 4 a.m. and there's no one outside. And I'm like, I like that. Yeah. If you start thinking, like, if you get on that Citizen app, you'll start freaking yourself out. Have you heard about the Citizen app?
No, I don't. I don't want to know any. Like, I don't. Blissful ignorance is where I'm at.
Well, I love true crime, so it's like kind of fun to get into it like that way. And being a woman, there's like kind of anything can happen to you at any time. So it is kind of interesting. You do have to kind of educate yourself and like know what's going on in the world. But there's also like a true crime, like throw on your bathrobe and like look out the blinds, like kind of aspect to it. It's kind of fun to like see.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, I assume you're not going to get on any kind of vigilante justice. So, and I can tell you, like, for me, I'm not too worried about who's around. Like, it's one of the benefits, if there are any, of being a black man in this country, is like, I am probably the least likely person to get mugged. They're thinking I'm going to do the mugging. They're not trying to mug me. You know what I mean? So I can walk around.
I'm a big comedy fan. That's actually like, I love that. That's very funny.
I can walk around pretty freely in that regard. You know what I mean?
I'm not in that regard.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about somebody rolling up on me to steal shit.
That's funny. Well, yeah, I'm a big comedy fan. So I'm like, funny. I like that. So we have a lot of things to look forward to coming up. We've got the reunion shows in Jersey and Mass, Headbangers Boat. Lots of things on the calendar to be excited about in 2023. If the past few years have taught us anything, it's that literally anything can happen at any time. Is there anything you're looking
true.
Right?
It's 100% true.
Anything can happen at any time. I mean, we're getting on a boat. I mean, all the things. Is there anything you're like really looking forward to in 2023?
I have a lot to look forward to, you know, both musically, career-wise. I mean, I'm at a pretty good place. Like, I'm partnered in a cannabis company. I manage a band. Basically, my life revolves around weed and music. So that's not too bad. You know, my life is not too bad. It's pretty good. So, but yeah, I mean, there's some exciting things. We got the shows, like you said, coming up, which should be like, you know, it's been a long time. So it's like, I think it's going to be really interesting to see, you know, because I've been getting like a lot of texts and calls from people and messages like about, you know, coming to Starland and stuff like that, especially. But it's like, man, it's been so long since we've been there. It's going to be like a really crazy, I feel like it's going to be a really exciting evening just because like just emotionally and all your friends and family being around and stuff like that. And it's going to be crazy. And now as for that boat, I'm going to tell you, I have mixed feelings about the boat. Okay.
But okay, me too. But we're doing it, and we're doing it.
Yeah, we're doing it. There's no turning back now. But I'm gonna be real. I'm a little scared. I'm gonna tell the truth. I'm a little shook. First, we're trapped on a boat. I mean, I know it's not gonna be any kind of Titanic situation. You know, I'm not saying that, but the concept of me being trapped someplace with literally thousands of crazy drunk people, it brings me a lot of anxiety. I have friends that have been texting me about the good times we're going to have on this boat. And I'm afraid of the good times because they sound too crazy. I don't know if I'm ready for that. I'm not ready for that much fun.
Well, my drunkest night from this past summer of probably like the year, I would say, was with Hatebreed, like this summer. So like that was, you know, so just good. I mean, Florida Frank band, like, what are you going to do? You just keep on going, I guess.
Hang around with them hoodlums, huh?
I know. I love boys from up north. They're my favorite. I love all of you guys. That was one thing the pandemic gave me. It was like, I discovered hardcore. I figured out things about myself. I was like, I love men from up north. Like, I really figured that out about me. It's like, I love the music. I love the attitude. My favorite bands. Like, I love to go just like hang out for like a month or so every year. So yeah. I know what I'm getting into. I like it from up there. That's my favorite. That's what I like.
Hanging out with them hoodlums, man. Them Hatebreed hoodlums. I know those dudes all too well.
I know. I've seen pictures. They're very cute.
For many years, very many years, lots of years of hanging out with those guys, man. Yeah. It's always a lot of fun.
Well, talking about the reunion show, I mean, it's a good feeling to be loved by all. And God forbid, that's kind of the sentiment about God forbid. everyone loves God forbid, and everyone wants to see God forbid, and everyone's just like, oh my God, it's God forbid. They just love God forbid. So that's also like kind of cool, like being so like after all these years, just like blanket.
I think it's crazy. Like, oh my
That's
God.
actually true. That's actually true. Like it is kind of wild.
It 100% is like, it's like people actually give a shit after like, it's been like 10 years. So you just figure like, it's like a breakup, you know what I mean? Eventually just move on. Like people move on, you know, they're like, I'm fucking somebody else now. You know, I'm listening to this band now. And it's shockingly enough, the response has been pretty awesome. There's a lot of people just like, man, I love this band. I miss this band. I was like, man, it's crazy. I'm like, who knew?
Well, every time I open up the Instagram app, you're like, Jen, like, this massive press here. Like, we can't get enough of you, apparently. And I'm like, you're doing my podcast? Thanks. Yay.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It's like, it's pretty, it's definitely pretty, it feels good. You know, I think everybody feels good about it. It's just so crazy. It's like, there's no way to kind of prepare yourself of, you know, how people are going to respond or not respond. So I guess, you know, obviously you hope for positive response. You know, no one's like, you know what I hope happens? I hope they shit on us every day. No, you know, no one has that in mind. So it's been great. It's been great. And I think everybody feels really positive about it. And it's definitely, you know, I definitely feel like, and I would say this is for the whole band, where it's like, I've been practicing like really hard, like pushing myself just because the response has been so good. Like, I don't want to let anybody down. I'm going to be my best. So, yeah. And I think we're all like super like hyper focused on that, like just making it like the best experience that we can for everybody, you know? Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah. Well, it is kind of funny. I was thinking about like when you were talking, like, what are things that like people still love like 10 years later? Like, okay, it's God forbid. High school football player, that's like glory days. High school cheerleader, because a bunch of my girlfriends were cheerleaders. Mm-hmm. And we're so old now, but like every now and then when they get drunk, they'll like bust out some cheerleader moves. Like they never lost it. So God. It is funny, all the things from all the years later. Ha ha. So
as you get older, you know, you reminisce and you look at things that maybe, you know, more fondly because you're reminiscing about them. They're probably not as special as you believe, but you feel it. So that's what gives it the value, you know?
And that's such a great segue to ask. So are there still tickets available for the Jersey show?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, definitely go. If you haven't gone yet, go find out. There was actually some people were like, yeah, it's sold out, but I don't think it is. I don't get like daily updates. So I'm trying myself. I'm trying not to think about it. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to show up and see there's a bunch of people there and leave it to, it's like people asking the sex of the baby before it's born. Mm-hmm. And some people are like, I don't want to know. I just want it to be a healthy child. That's how I feel about the show. You know, like, I don't want to know how many people are coming. I just want it to be a healthy crowd, please. You know, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I mean, I had the same like pre-show feeling regardless anyway. It's always like anxiety and me trying to breathe and force myself not to throw up, basically. So it could be 5 people or it could be 50,000 people. My reaction is exactly the same before the show. I'm like, oh, all right, be cool, man. Don't throw up. Breathe it out. I keep pacing around and doing that. And then once I start playing, I'm fine. But that 15, 20, 25 minutes preceding that, I'm a wreck. So
that's your pre-show ritual, is just like freaking the fuck out.
I mean, pretty much. I mean, I wouldn't call it a ritual. If I could stop it, I would. I've tried everything. You know, the only time I really didn't have those feelings, it was like I was, you know, I had a nice whiskey buzz going on, But I mean, at that point, we were touring frequently. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're playing every day for months and months and months. It's a little bit more autopilot. Right now, I could never do that. You know, it would be a train wreck. So, you know, I just deal with the anxiety. You know, once I hit note one, I'm good to go. But that 15, 20 minutes before the show, I'm like, please. All right, keep it down. Breathe it out. I need some gum. Can I get some gum? Yo, man, you got some gum? You know, that's pretty much it. Run around like a lunatic for like.
Well, now I'm nervous. Oh my God. Now on the day of the show, I'm going to be like 5 hours till show, 4 hours till show, 30 minutes till show. He's going to, oh, what are we doing right now? So got it.
Eat a healthy breakfast before the show. That's what it's all about.
There you go. So how are you practicing to get ready? So what are you doing right now to get ready for the shows?
For me, it's like just playing a lot because I've been playing the whole time. It's just when you're playing these songs, God forbid songs are kind of like they're physically demanding, but they're also long. So that's a lot of like you need to. It's like training for a run. You know, you got to have the endurance. And I don't think it's like we write anything like we write stuff is, you know, I don't think it's faster or any crazier than a lot of bands that we play with, but the dynamics of it and the sheer length of the songs, you know, like when you see Hatebreed, Matt's in shape. That dude is going at it hardcore. They play 10 songs in 12 minutes. You're like, damn, how did you do that? You know, their songs are like 2-3 minutes. God forbid songs, you know, we're playing up in meter. Some of the stuff is pretty fast, but they're like 6 minutes. You know, it's just picture that in your mind of, you know, basically playing an hour and a half set where you're running in 20-minute intervals with like a 30-second break in between those 20-minute intervals, you know? So it's like, you know, it's one thing to kind of like just be able to sort of make your way through the songs. And it's another thing altogether when you want to like, I want to make sure that I'm playing everything with authority. So it's like, it requires a lot of, you know, playing for hours, basically, you know, like if you can actually see here is my little practice kit that I have in the room.
I like. It's kind of like. So, what do you play on? This is fun. So, what are we looking at? I'm not a musician, so I don't know. But for people who are, I'm sure they want to know.
Basically, we're looking at a D drum kit that D drum shipped me out to Vegas, and this is, you know, it's a full size kit. I'm using I'm using an old double pedal down there because everybody else uses like brand new stuff when they're playing to try to make themselves faster.
Yeah.
I basically assume that the harder I make it on myself, like that pedal is from like the early 90s. And the beaters weigh a ton. So, and they're all the way back to my feet. So it's like, I've been pushing myself harder and harder all the time. So I figure if you make it harder now, you know, when I get to the show, I'll be cruising. So that's my theory, at least. And like I play in this room, I'm playing a sweatshirt when I'm in here just to increase the heat and basically the physical pressure to kind of get ready. So like when I walk into the show, you know, it's always going to be hot. There's a bunch of people in there breathing hot. So you're just prepared. You know, obviously if you're touring, that just kind of happens naturally. But I kind of have to force the issue a little bit when you're not doing it all the time. It's like it takes a lot more preparation, I think, to get ready to do a one-off than it does if you're touring. Like you can get prepared and get tight before you're touring, and across a tour, obviously you're playing every day. It gives your body a chance to get stronger and things to develop and consistency to happen. When you're just kind of playing a couple shows, it's like you need a lot more preparation to play up to that level, I think, than, you know, any other time. And it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's definitely worth it. Like I feel I started, you know, getting ready for this set like probably about 7 weeks ago, I started playing this stuff every day. So now I'm feeling pretty good. It's like I got to go out to LA and do a couple rehearsals with Doc and Nick, and then New Jersey, we're going to do rehearsals all together, before the show. But I feel pretty good. Like, finally, I'm starting to be like, all right, I'm prepared, feel ready to go.
You said something, that God forbid songs are so long. Why do you guys choose to make like 5 or 6 minute songs versus like 2-3 minute songs? I think that's kind of an interesting choice as well. So how do you guys kind of come up with that?
I mean, I think we could have wrote shorter songs, but a lot of times I just felt like we had more to say. So it's like, and stylistically, we had a lot of ideas of range and kind of emotional level and dynamics that it was impossible to put all that stuff into songs that were shorter, like to get the proper message across. Like we could have done that, but they'd have probably been really shitty songs.
Yeah.
Like it would have made any, you'd be like, all right, it's just an amalgamation of parts. It's not even a song. We just jammed all the shit together. But when you're trying to do something like, I don't know, I feel like we tried to make things more like epic a lot of the time. So it was like, we're going to have a big intro or like a huge thrash intro, and then it would boil itself down to like a heavy part and a really emotional, like melodic section and ambient sound. And then it was like, we're going to break into this rocking part, like Foo Fighters or something. Like there were so many different textures of shit and ideas we were trying to accomplish. It was like impossible to write a 3-minute song. It just wasn't going to happen. That just wasn't the style of band that God forbid is. It's not. We can't get the message across that quick, apparently.
I want to ask about Nick Hibba. I've never met him before. What's he like?
I mean, many people have asked this question. The answer is always the same. He's like the nicest dude in the universe. Period. I've never seen him once upset. Not once. That dude is in a good mood all the time, smiling, thinking of positive shit to say. That's just how he's living. You know what I mean? Which is like, I don't know. He's a great dude. He's a phenomenal guitar player, ridiculously good. And he's just like, being around him is very easy to do. If you can't get along with that dude, there's something so broken in you that, it can't be fixed. That's the best way I could describe it. He's awesome. Like the easiest dude in the world to just get along with. And he's just a great dude.
Okay. Well, isn't it nice when you hear about like really nice people in the industry? Like, isn't that just your favorite?
I mean, it depends. Because sometimes it's a lie. See, that's the thing. You got to know the lies and the truth.
I've always had a theory that like, if you're not a good person in the industry, you'll be found out and you won't be like, you'll be found out and like the real ones will know and they'll be like, nah, you're on some bullshit or something like that. But then you see like super successful people who are still out there doing it and they're horrible, awful people. So I don't know.
It's a catch as catch can, you know what I mean? It's, because there's a lot of people that have fantastic masks, they veil who they really are really well. Then there's other people that are just like, they're just shitty, but they keep to themselves. So, I mean, there's something to be said for that, I suppose. Like if you just know you're shitty, like, look, I'm just in a bad mood all the time. I'm a shitty person. So I'm just going to stay away from people. I can understand that. And you know what? I respect that. But, there's also people that they smile in your face, turn around and talk shit on you behind your back and all kinds of other stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
foolishness,
Yeah, I know the type that's like, I'm just a shitty person. I just like stay by myself. I know him. I tried to date him for the past 2 years.
I'm raising my hand, so that's me.
Hey.
I'm a shitty curmudgeon.
Oh, those are my favorite. I'm so attracted to those, apparently. Oh my God, get over here. I love those. Those are my favorite.
Oh man, what a life you must lead.
Right. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about your history. We are revisiting old memories. We're making some new ones, but we got to know about the history from the start. So you're from Jersey. What was it like growing up in Jersey?
I mean, my upbringing was pretty straightforward. I went to Catholic school for all of elementary school.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up going to public school in like 8th grade, and then things changed. But growing up in New Jersey is like, I realized after you go other places in the country and you go to other countries and you see how things are. Growing up in New Jersey prepares you for a lot because it really is a melting pot of people. Like when you go to other places in the country, you realize like there's like one Indian dude in the town, or like that's the one Korean dude that lives here, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like New Jersey, you're seeing it all, every type of personality. It's just jam full of a lot of different people. So I think it definitely prepares you to interact in a different way. I think people from New Jersey are obviously more aggressive because there's just more people there everybody's trying to do what they want to do. And there's a lot of people with that same mentality. So it's like, I need to do what I got to do. No fuck around sort of mentality. Which like, New York is the same thing. You go up to Massachusetts or like certain, places on the East where there's a lot of people and it's like densely populated. You're going to have similar mentality, but New Jersey I felt is like definitely one of those places is very multicultural, from food wise to just different people, churches, whatever any way you want to look at it. You can see so much and interact with so many different kinds of people in a very small area.
Well, did you end up in Vegas because of moving from Jersey to Vegas? Did you end up in Vegas because of the cannabis company that you're partnered in?
Yes. That, and I was just kind of like, I felt like I was in New Jersey and I was kind of like becoming stagnant there. Mm-hmm. The guy I'm partnered with, Joe, that I'm partnered with in the cannabis company, he was like, yo, man, you need to come out west and get down with the program. And I was kind of like, there was always another reason, always something else I was doing. I was doing studio work. I was doing this, to sort of like, we were kind of making these long-term plans. And it got to a point where it was like, I was sitting there in my room one day. I was like, reading through emails or whatever it was I was doing. And I was just kind of like, what the fuck am I doing here right now? Like, what am I doing? I need to fucking get up and make a change and do something else. I need to do something else. Mm-hmm. And I ended up like literally within like 5 minutes of me having that thought, Joe was texting me about some other random shit. And I called him up and said, listen, man, I'm ready to roll. He's like, yeah. He's like, all right, booking a flight, get on the plane. I was like, whoa, hold on. So, I mean, I shuffled some shit around, put some shit into storage, some shit at friends. And I was like, all right, I'm on the plane. I was on the plane the next day. And I came out here and started, realizing that I know a lot of people out here too, so it wasn't like a super hard transition. Other than the first week I moved here, it was 113 degrees every day. So that was a little like, I was like, you go outside, you feel like a vampire exploding into flames and shit in that weather. It's like, no matter what you do in that weather, you are sweating profusely. Like you walk from your house to the car, sweating. You get out of the car, walk from your car to the store, sweating. You're like, fuck, this heat is insane. It's really like hell. I mean, you get used to it a little bit, and people like, they were like, oh, it's dry heat. Listen, fuck that dry heat explanation. It's ridiculous. Once it's over 105 degrees, starts going up above that, I don't care if it's dry heat, wet heat, mediocre heat, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It just feels like it's sucking the soul out of your body. And I know it's like you're out in it for a little while, you running errands or doing whatever. When you come home, you feel like whatever minor task you've done, you feel like you did some real shit. Your body's like, all right, I just need to sit down now. You need some water. You need to sit down, recuperate. But I ended up coming out here to deal with the cannabis business. And it just so happened, like, I know a ton of people in the music business who are here. Met some other people who are doing TV and movies and stuff. And it's like, it wasn't that hard to transition at all. I was like, man, when you move to a new place, you figure like, I don't really know. Like when I first moved out here, I was like, I'm not really going to know that many people. And I just started to reach out to people. I went out to like 2 shows and I realized there was like 30 or 40 people out here that I knew already. And everything's like, it's like 25 minutes away from anything. Like if you're here, you want to go to this dude's house, it's 25 minutes away. Want to go this club over here is 25 minutes away. So it's not like everything's super spread out for the most part either. You're going to run into people at some juncture, even if you go out a little bit, and there's all kinds of there's always free shows, like New Year's Eve, they have like Bush and I forget who else is there, but I'm thinking about going to see Bush, and then it's a free show. Like they have free shows on Fremont Street with like legit bands, like huge bands, and you just roll up there and there's like 2,000 people there. You just run into people. It's crazy. So, and there's always some like weird things going on. Like they had you watch that show, The Boys, that's on Prime TV? You ever watch that?
I hate that. I can't stand that show.
You can't stand that show? Why?
I hate that. It's the douchebag dude. I can't handle it. Captain America douchebag man. I hate him. I can't do it. I can't sit through it. I can't and I won't. Like,
okay, all right.
No, I fucking think. Anyways, yeah. So tell me more about your favorite show.
That's not my favorite show, but it's just so they had they had an episode called Hero-gasm, right? And it's about how like all the heroes have an orgy every year in this house. So literally like 5 minutes from me, they had a mansion they rented out for a Hero-gasm party. You know what I mean? Like it's just weird shit that's going on all around you. But like I don't really see it. But it's like my friend found out about it. He's like, dude, it's like 5 minutes from your house. You know what I mean? Or like Non-Point was coming through and like they were playing at some random place and it was like 10 minutes from my house. Like my friend called me up. He was on, so he's like, yo, why don't you come through the show? I was like, well, it's 10 minutes from my house. Why not? I'll roll through. But it's like, it's crazy the things the people that you could just run into. And there's actually a lot of people moving here, moving out of California to here because California is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous to live there. It's like the cost of living is out of control. It's another reason to leave New Jersey too. It's like, it is so expensive to live in New Jersey. Like the places you can find out here to live, like for what you're paying, like they have 2-3 bedroom houses out here that they rent out here for like $1,300, $1,400. And they're not shitty. You're like in a nice suburban area. It's like cool, it's quiet and shit. If you get $1,300 to go to New Jersey, you'd be lucky to be living over top of a fucking bodega that gets shot at every night in Patterson. You know what I mean? You're still paying $1,300 a month for some above the store apartment. It's a shithole. It's like, that's a big change, which is also nice. It's like the cost of living is way less expensive here than New Jersey, which is, it takes a lot of weight off your mind just to be able to like live like a normal human being a little bit without like killing yourself to pay just the expansive like bills and taxes and shit like everywhere else. Like ridiculous. Like it's crazy. It's crazy.
And have you seen Handmaid's Tale?
Yes. That show is so messed up. I've seen like every show because I don't sleep a lot and I multitask all the time, like drummer brain. So it's like, I'm always like watching a show and looking at emails and updating shit. And so it's like, I'll name a show. I guarantee you I've seen it.
I'm the same way because I'm a social media manager. And unless I'm like getting content for my clients, I work from home. So I work like in bed. And so I've seen everything too. So I've seen absolutely everything too. But
except for The Boys, because you turned it off. You're like, I hate that show.
Saw it, hated it, sucked.
It's so good. It's so
horrible.
Good. The show is so good. Fantastic performances, blood, sex, action, hot people. What more can you ask
True Blood again. Just watch True Blood again.
Okay, let's just say this.
True Blood.
I did. So I'll be fair. I like some shows. Like I like True Blood, and not in the same sense. Okay, True Blood has a lot of terrible faults as a show, but I like it because I look at it more like comedy. That show is comedic. You know, a lot of it's unintentional, but it's still funny. You know what I mean? And I love the relationship dynamics on the show. It's what is really funny to me about that show. So I'll watch True Blood, but I'm going to say this. The boys may be disgusting, but the acting performances, like the performances, the cinematography, the action is top notch. You know, True Blood ain't on that level. It ain't on that level. You know what I mean? True Blood you like because it gives you the stuff that you like. People saying ignorant stuff, hot people, sex, tons of violence. Who doesn't love those things in a show? Those are all the best things in a show. Every good show has comedy, sex, violence, hot people. If they have those things, the show's probably good. You know, all the best shows have that. If they're missing one and God forbid two of those things, they're fucked. You know what? Everybody hates that show. Nobody likes the show that has no comedy and no hot people or no sex and no violence. You're like, what? I want to see that shit.
Well, there's true crime is so big now. So now, like,
violence,
police detectives, like police procedural.
I watch a lot of that stuff. I mean, to me, it gets repetitive after a certain point because it's like, you know, because there's so many crime shows, like both, you know, like what do they call them? When they make like drama documentaries or whatever, you know, it's like this stuff. Yeah, it's like so many to the point. It's like, how many murder mysteries can you watch at a certain point? It's like Criminal Minds, you know, or Law and Order. They are like Law and Order. What season is like 125th season? You know what I mean? Like Criminal Minds. They just came out with another Criminal Minds. I'm like, come on. I liked Criminal Minds that first 5 seasons. Then it got to that point. I was like, really? Another kidnapped person with a blue shirt that you found a fabric from that was traced back to Indonesia or some shit. Like, come on, man. Everybody is not getting their shirts made in fucking Indonesia.
I know. It's a Scooby-Doo generation.
Well, you know, everybody wants the flash. They want the murder mayhem, you know.
Yeah. So what are your favorite movies? Are you into action movies like Doc is? Like I hear a little bit of like what you're talking about with how Doc talks about movies. Are you obsessed with those?
Well, I mean, obviously we watched a lot of this, you know, as a group, all of us like a lot of things. Because there was a point at which we were trapped in a van for months and we used to have a VHS player in the van. So at some point, that's what all you were doing. And then like when we got to a bus, DVR was like the big thing. So I had like data discs, like I had stacks of them, like every show, every season that you could imagine. So I would literally, instead of being in a bunk, I would take over the back lounge, put in my DVR player and hook up all these discs. Like I had literally spools when you still had to do that. Spools, like every show from, Popeye that was made in the 1920s to Mork and Mindy to fucking every show that was out. So that's all, you know, a lot of times you're taking 30-hour rides. That's what we were doing. We were watching movies, watching shows, but action movies, super huge fan. Sci-fi, guess what? Super huge fan. Fantasy, like fantasy movies too. I like pretty much all. I just like the art. Like I like basically, I guess anybody that's in a creative industry, you tend to like anything that's creative, even if it's bad. I'll still watch it, you know, because I love shows. I love what goes into it. I love kind of like the more you know about it, or the more you know about anything, you get more interested in it. And you'll watch even if it's terrible, you're like, oh, I get like something good about that. You know, this show really sucks, but I like the relationship dynamic of these two people, so I'll watch it. But, You know, it's like, I like all kinds of movies. Now, if I had to make a choice of top 5 movies of all time, it's really difficult, but I can boil it down. So number 1 movie, Casino. Okay. Basically, because
I love Casino. Okay, go on.
Casino's great. Yeah. It's got comedy. It's got violence. It's got sex. It's basically like Goodfellas, and it's like Goodfellas Part 2. You know what I mean? Which I find, you know, that's awesome. Okay, I have to go with number two. I have to go with The Godfather Part Two. And you say, and it's not because it's a crime movie. It's just a phenomenal film. Like you get to travel to different old school Italy. Like just everything looks great, and the performances are just ridiculous. Okay, number three. This is gonna sound crazy. Blazing Saddles.
What's
It's
that?
Blazing Saddles is a movie that Mel Brooks did. Um, with Gene Wilder and well, actually Harvey Korman. There's a bunch of comedians from that era that are in that. Cleavon Little and Gene Wilder played the main, but it's got a ton of racism, which I love. It's one of my favorite things to have in movies. But it's just a fantastic comedy. But they're also pushing the boundaries of social issues and everything that was going on at that time period. They broke a lot of rules and set a lot of standards and basically forged the way for a lot of other comedies and movies. Obviously it's way pre like Spaceballs and The Toy and shit like that. So it's just a phenomenal comedic movie with social comment, underlying social commentary. And I just loved it. Like the cast of characters and the significance of every character making such an impact, I think is profound. It's profound. This is where it gets hard when we get to my number 4 and 5. Okay. Mm-hmm. Number 4 movie, The Empire Strikes Back. Okay. People are going to maybe disagree with that, but part of that for me is nostalgia. Part of it is I love sci-fi shit. And it was just such an epic movie of good and evil personified. Like, it's just like you're watching it. It was like, I remember seeing it in the movie theater and be like, this movie is freaking amazing. It's the best thing I've ever seen in my life. I celebrated that shit, man. I still watch Empire. I just watched Empire Strikes Back like 2 days ago. The 5th one is kind of like a weird choice, but it's Captain America: Civil War. And it just recently became one of my top 5 just because I just love the epic nature of the movie and I love the darkness of it. You know what I mean? And just the performances, the way everything looks, it's just fucking amazing. Now there 8 billion other movies that I'd like probably just almost as much as those bottom 3. The top 2 are the top 2, no matter what the circumstance. But there's like 1,000, every Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, Bad Boys, Last Boy Scout, Commando, Red Heat, every fucking Bruce Lee movie. I love Kung Fu movies, both new and old, blaxploitation movies. Can't get enough. I love all those movies, from Dolomite to Superfly. Oh, this shit popping on my screen. But I love so many movies, like it's impossible. But those 5 are there's just 5 movies like if I was trapped somewhere and I had like those 5 choices, I could survive rotating those 5, day in and day out and be okay.
I love Casino. Like Ginger is such an epic character. And
she is an epic character.
It's fun to watch women work. Like, I don't think I have it like that, just like balls. And I don't know if a person could lead a normal life with that kind of personality, or if you just like
no, absolutely not. I mean, obviously that's the kind of person like that's like a shark mentality. They can't stay still. They have to keep moving. Mm-hmm. They have to keep moving. And they sit still, they're dead. They're done. It's over. That's why she couldn't commit and settle down. She's like, I can't do that. Mm-hmm. But because obviously there's a lot of women in the world like they do exactly that. They find like that's the good life, and they just say, "Fuck it, I'm gonna act right now. This is how it's gonna be." And Ginger was not that. She was like, "Well, the good life is cool, but we're still on the hustle. Are we not on the hustle? I don't have to hustle no more." Yeah. And she didn't know what to do with herself. She was like, "Fuck, I gotta act a fool somehow. Like, what can I do to keep myself in that with that energy?" She needed that. She needed that drama in her life. She needed that excitement, that thrill of doing bad shit. And it's intoxicating, obviously, because there's so many like the excitement of it all, the benefits, and, the sneaking around and all that shit until you get busted. And then obviously, the opposite side of that coin is then you're dealing with a dude like De Niro, and he was like, I'll fucking kill you for real, and then consequences come into play. That's really what that's about. He's representing the consequences, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. That's people don't want to deal with that side. They want it to be just like the soap operas, like, oh, all this drama happened, but you know what? It all worked out. That's not how it goes, though. That's what Casino teaches you. It doesn't all go good like that. It goes bad for everybody. That's the other reason I kind of like it. It's kind of like a Shakespearean tragedy. Everybody ends up fucked at the end of that movie, in some capacity.
Yeah, I think like watching so I watch content like constantly too, because I work from home, and just the self-destructiveness is so hard to watch, when you like get into a movie and then you start watching all the self-destructive behavior. It's so hard to watch.
The hardest thing for me to watch in TV shows and movies is like, especially if I've already seen it, is those moments that like are super embarrassing for whatever character is on scene. And you're like, oh, this is so embarrassing. Like, I don't even want to watch it. Like, I feel embarrassed for you watching this shit. I can't do it. I can't do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Those moments make me sometimes I'm just like, oh, I got to fast forward this shit. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it,
Yeah. I had to do that with a historical show. She was just about to she had this great husband, and then she's just like hooking up with his cousin. She's going to get caught and he's going to murder her. And I'm just like, stop.
Yeah, that was the best. That's one of the best things about Greek and Italian history. They were always fucking somebody. Mm-hmm. That's how it was. Mm-hmm. Everybody was sneaking and freaking. That whole, their whole building the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire. Like, oh my God, the nasty shit that these people were doing was just incredible. You're just like, my God, and like if you read that book, go get that book, The Family.
What's it called again? The Family?
It's called The Family. Okay. There's stuff in the book that they don't do on the show. So like on the show, he has the son and the daughter hook up. But in the book, but it doesn't happen on the show, it happens in the book. In the book, the father, the Pope, actually he plans for them to have sex. Like he has a whole reason, a whole setup behind it. And there's also another son in the book that's not on the show, a younger son.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and it's like completely different too. It's like his mistress that he has all the kids with doesn't live like she's nowhere like she lives out in the fucking woods, and that's where he goes to see her, like out in the village and shit. Like there's a lot of little differences, and it makes the show make a lot more sense, but they leave a lot of shit out because it's even more fucked up in the book than it is on the show. And you're kind of like, man, this is grimy how this dude is rolling. Like, he's selling, but that's what people did. They sold their fucking women for status and, political reasons. And it was like people were marrying each other for just any kind of gain and any kind of advantage. And the thought process. Oh, yeah. And it's like, and he breaks down like the thought process in the book. Like, why the father has them hook up. And it's because he wants to make sure that he'll always be family first oriented and he'll always take care of her no matter what. So he has them have sex.
So what do you think about Game of Thrones? So that Game of Thrones. Did you watch the new season, obviously?
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah. Okay.
I was waiting there.
So good, right?
It's one of the only shows that I actually watch like episode by episode, like as it comes out. Because most shows I'll just wait so I can just watch the whole thing. Because I like to get the complete story. It really pisses me off that I have to wait every week to watch Game of Thrones. Like, fuck, just put out the whole season.
7 days. Longest 7 days ever.
Yeah. You're like counting like you're looking like the hour before, you're like, fuck, it's not 6 o'clock yet. But
I know.
I read some of the books. I didn't read all the books because there's literally more books than I thought. Mm-hmm. And they're crazy long. They're like some of those books are like 1,800 pages. You're like, all right, I got time, but I ain't got that time. But I read a couple, on the road, but I love the show. It's like I can't get enough. And now they're doing all the other spinoffs. They're doing the Jon Snow spinoff, and I forget what the other one is, but it's like a Stark thing, I think, as well. That
I didn't know any of that. That's awesome.
Oh, I'm so I go on like the Super Nerd YouTube channel. It's like the dude that does all the Game of Thrones updates. Like he's like the guy that does all the game. Like he like talks to people at HBO and shit, and finds out when everything gets greenlit. He gives you like all this information. Like he's the type of guy who's like, you see that coffee cup that was in scene number 13 and episode 8 of season 6. Did you see that coffee cup? Did you know about that? You're like, dude. But so apparently, I guess HBO had a deal with Kit Harington, and then the guy, his longtime friend, his buddy, who's a writer, I guess they submitted this idea, and his friend had written for some other stuff that they did with HBO. So they got greenlit for the Jon Snow spinoff. I'm still wondering about this friend. You're like, because he dated that, or he's married to that chick that played Ygritte or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so this dude has been with him like that whole time, like for like the past 10 years. Like they lived together and whatever, and they did all this stuff. I was like, kind of weird, funky shit is going on. Some Brady Bunch shit going on here too, huh? But no, they greenlit that show, and I know there's one other, I forget what it is, but I thought it was something about like a Stark spinoff or something like that. But there's another 2 spinoffs got greenlit, other than House of Dragon. So I can't get enough. They could make I really feel like it's something they could do like forever. Did you like Rings of Power?
Actually, I'm halfway through it and I stopped watching and I just got a little like bored with the elves and their grandiosity and the way that they talk. Like I got a little bored of like the absolute like, oh, everything is so cherished of the earth and like I got bored. Like and I tried watching it like a few days ago. And one thing I'm not, I have good girlfriends who are like absolute nerds and they're nerds and they know it and they like it. Like that's them. I'm not nerdy. I don't like that shit the same way like other people do. I don't like, that's just not me. I'm not nerdy, but like I have friends who are like, that's what they love it for. And it just got too like,
it's a lot more dialogue
drama. Like everyone is inherently good in that show.
Yeah, I mean, it's something like I feel like you have to be a deeper fan to be into that kind of show. Like I loved it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I came up on The Hobbit.
Too. Yeah, I love fantasy stuff. But do you agree though that everyone is just like walking around and just being like loyal friends and everyone's just like, oh, it's right. Do you see that point of it? Where everyone's so good. Everyone's like, so, of course, let me get the ore from my mountain. Of course, like daddy, it's the ore, but the ore in the mountain and what, I don't know, I'm bored.
Well, yeah, everybody comes around, but it's kind of like, I like the dialogue of it. I like it's definitely a slower show, and you can tell where they're kind of trying to like House of the Dragon. You could tell like they're moving that show along because they're jumping years like I was like, holy shit, like they covered a 30-year span in a season, like it was all good. I was like, damn, but they were trying to just accomplish so much. I feel like Rings, like they're trying to, it's like the slow burn. This shit's by like the 4th season, that show is going to be like really hitting. But you got to get there. You got to have the interest to get there. And everybody doesn't. You know what I mean? I have friends that they hate Game of Thrones. They're like, fuck this show. It's not enough. Like my one friend is like, this dude, if there's not fucking or fighting or killing going on, he's over it. And if there's dialogue, he's like, dude, they're talking too much. There should be somebody dying or somebody fucking right now, or I'm off this show. Like he's over it instantly. So
it's the most entertaining show in the entire world. What a liar!
He was mad about.
What a liar!
He was like, the second season of Punisher was too slow. I was like, it's the Punisher, dude. Like, how much action are you looking for?
What does this person do? What's their daily life like? Are they like an accountant? Are they?
He used to actually work for a cable company. He was like, the people that are what do they call them? Customer service people. He's like a customer service manager. But I mean, he does something else now. But it's like I think it's also his attention span. He's just not that dude. Like he's not. He doesn't want to invest that time into something like that. He's like, nah, I'm going to invest that time into that. He wants instant results, instant gratification.
Instant fucking, instant fighting.
Yeah. Then somebody needs to be fucking and then cut their head off. That's what he wants at every scene. Like, I'm like, so how do you get there? You just turn, the show just starts and it's just like, oh, and then they're fucking the chorus. Like, what do you want? But
what'll be enough for you?
There's a lot of people like that.
So talking about movies, you mentioned Kung Fu, and I know that that's part of your history. You kind of discovered metal because you were like going to these like swap meet plates.
Oh, yes.
And like, that's how you found like Slayer concerts and metal shows. And like, you would go to buy Kung Fu movies and then you were like, hey, what's Slayer on tape? Right?
Yeah. I mean, Byron and I and some friends that we had, there was a flea market in here. There was two at one point, but it's actually in, if you ever see that movie Mallrats, that it's like a big Jersey movie. It's like it's part of that whole Jersey chain. He did Mallrats and Chasing Amy and, obviously Jay and Silent Bob and all that shit. But, in the early days, he did Mallrats and they showed the Route 1 flea market. And they had all these little booths and shit. And they had this little booth where you could go and they had stacks of videotapes. They were definitely 100% bootleg everything. You know what I mean? Like literally they were tapes that they made. It's like Dunn and Marker said like 5 deadly venoms. It was like Dunn and Marker. And like, wow, this is cool. It's like they got Slayer, Megadeth, and Metallica. It's like started buying these tapes and watching these shows. And let me just tell you, the quality was shit pile. But you're just so excited to have it that it was like you didn't give a fuck about the quality and like people like now like man, it's pixelated. Man, we were just happy to be able to watch anything that had a show like and got to see the music side of it. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like when I first started discovering, I was like 13. And I don't know, a lot of people say, oh, I went to shows. I was going to shows since I'm 12 years old. Like, my parents were not trying to have that shit, okay? Like, my mom took me to a show when I was young, but like she would take me like Broadway shows or, the circus, or I went to see Michael Jackson. We went to go see, my mom was a huge Dolly Parton fan. So it was like Dolly Parton and Kenny Rogers, you know what I mean? But I wasn't going to Slayer to when I was fucking 13. I don't know who these people are. Everybody always bragging. I was at Pantera when I was 9, dude. Okay.
That's very true. Like most of my interviews are like that. That's very true. Actually, everyone's like, yeah, I was in the pit. I just had Jason from Ingested on. He was like, yeah, like Slipknot pit when I was like 11 or something like that.
Yeah. You know what? Who the fuck are your parents? My parents were not having that shit. We'd be out in the Slipknot. My parents, no. My mom is a big fan of music and she supported, like, I was always allowed to play in the house because my mom plays and sings. She actually does gigs now. She does like jazz gigs and blues. She sings and plays piano. So she was always very supportive of me playing, like, and as she said, she always knew where I was, obviously, because she could hear me beating on shit for hours on it. And my parents actually moved to the others. They built an extension on our house and they gave up the main side of the house, the main bedroom, and built an extension on the other side of the house, basically just built themselves another place to be. So they left me up in the front of the house. Then there was like a middle section where my mom kept her organ and her piano and her shit. And then there was the other side of the house where they actually dwelled. So they're like, listen, you be up there. We're going to be over here. We'll see you when we see you, But she was always very supportive. Like, and it didn't matter what kind of music. Like when I bought my first technically metal vinyl record was an Ozzy Osbourne tribute album with Randy Rhoads. And my mom would actually play that on her own, cause she liked the organs and the pageantry of it and the dramatic nature of Ozzy at that time. She would listen to it. But she was always super supportive of that. But there's no way in hell, there's no way in any conception of the mind where my mother would be like looking out at a Slipknot pit and be like, sure, go ahead. I like the way that looks. Get your ass out there. Have a good time. No. These people that say that they were in the pits and Slayer and all these crazy pits when they're like under, like 16, 17, you know what you need to do? Either one, you're lying, or two, you need to have a talk with your parents because they was not there for you. Okay. You did not receive the proper love and understanding that you should get. I don't know. Parents are also, you got parents today.
That's funny though, because it is like an inherently like extremely dangerous situation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is like inherently very dangerous.
I got an 11-year-old kid. Like, let's say, I wanted to get him into metal and stuff. He'd be maybe on my shoulders or something like next to the stands. So I'm not letting my 11-year-old kid go to no pit. Not unless you don't want him. You're like, fuck it. If he lives, he lives. He dies, he dies, What kind of shit is that? What kind of home training do you got with parents like that?
That's so funny.
They don't give a fuck about you.
That was actually, I've never thought about that. That's a hilarious point. So
it's crazy. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. My mom would not have that shit. My mom would be like, I'm like, let me go to, I could be 13, but like, it's one thing playing Slayer in the house. I'd be like, hey, Mom, I want to roll to the Slayer concert. I'm 13, not even in high school yet. She'd have looked at me and be like, boy, are you out of your goddamn mind? You get your ass in that room. That would have been the whole conversation.
Well, it's so funny though, but like I remember in another interview, you met Doc when he was like 14. So was Doc like trying to be metal with you when he was like 14?
I mean,
so to that point, right?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. So,
but Doc, like, did he just like always love metal from like a super young age?
I mean, they were getting into metal at that point. They were like, I mean, it's not like they knew a ton about metal, but they were like, they knew Metallica, their MTV still existed, Headbangers Ball still existed. Yeah. So there was access to it. But it wasn't like they didn't start, I don't think really any of us started really getting into the heavier stuff until years later, like a couple years later. Because I remember we started getting to like Meshuggah and The Flesh and At the Gates and Dying Fetus, that kind of stuff. But I think at that point, Doc was maybe 16 or 17 and Dallas was like 17 or 18. At that point, I was like 24. So I was like, I had been listening obviously to Slayer and stuff like they were just learning about, I had been listening about since 1987. So it was like, I already knew about a lot of bands, but they were still kind of like the more publicly known heavy bands like Overkill, Metallica, Pantera, Slayer, Megadeth, Metallica, and then obviously we also came from the age of glam. But the thing about glam bands was, even if you saw the shittiest glam band, they always had somebody that could shred, which was like the big thing when in the 80s, like when we were coming up, listen to a lot of that music. It was like, man, we're into like Tony McAlpine and Blue Saraceno and Yngwie Malmsteen, Steve Vai and Satriani. Like we were into like anything that shredded was cool basically at that point. So, I don't think they were like, they were versions of metalheads, I guess you could say, but their father was also a musician. Their mother was a musician. Their father was open to a lot of different music. So when you have that going on in your house, it's going to lead you to looking towards, being more open to extreme music of any kind, whether it's metal or fusion or jazz. It's like anything that's not the common pop stuff that most kids' parents are going to have them listening to. You know what I mean? So it gives you the opportunity to at least to embrace something different, which their parents, totally 100% did. Like mine did. My mom was the same way. She was like 100% like, oh, that's cool. Like maybe she didn't like it or fully understand it, but I could play her anything. I put on some Slayer, but like, yo, check this out, Mom. Listen to this. She'd be like, oh, that's cool. Do your thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what the fuck he's saying, but enjoy it.
Yeah.
Um,
So how
so
did God forbid get together? How did you guys all hook up, and like what year did you guys start playing together? How did all that happen?
um, I mean, I guess it happened the same way any band really sort of happens. Like some of us, like myself, Byron, and John, we went to school together, so we had played together, for fun here and there in random circumstances. Byron and I were really close. So he used to play guitar, so we used to jam at each other's houses and stuff because we only lived like 10 minutes away from each other. Both our moms played piano and sang, and they got to know each other. So like we only lived. So it's just kind of natural course of events. We were like two black dudes that like metal. It wasn't like there was a whole bunch of dudes that were black. They were like, "Oh man,
Yeah.
you want to check out this King Diamond?" Motherfuckers be looking at you like. And then we had, another friend, which was Byron's best friend, Robbie, who was like, he was actually the original singer for the band before Byron was, when Byron used to play bass. And he was black and white. He came from a mulatto household. He had like a bunch of brothers and sisters. Like he was into King. Him and Byron were so into King Diamond and Merciful Fate, it was driving me crazy. Like I couldn't escape them. Like every day with the King Diamond Merciful Fate records, every day. I'm talking when I say every day, I mean every day they were listening to King Diamond Merciful Fate for years. For years.
That's really heavy though. That's a lot.
Like, it was driving me insane. It was driving me insane because I was like, I can't listen anymore, King Diamond. I want to kill somebody.
Yeah. Well, they came to town recently, and I just like I love metal and I love heavy metal and I love death metal too. But like that shit's like on a whole other level. And I'm Christian. I don't like I'm Christian. I just don't fuck around with the super satanic stuff. And I'm like besties with Cataclysm, and all they do is play with Deicide. So I have to like leave and go get Whataburger like every time Deicide goes on stage, because I'm just like, it feels wrong and I just don't want to fuck around with it. I saw pictures from the Merciful Fate show and I was like, ooh, that's like, for me being such a funny metalhead, like I'm pretty glam and I'm pretty fucking into like really heavy shit. But I saw that and I was like, that's a lot. And that's how I felt when I saw like all that shit. Like
a lot of people get
the pics and shit.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people get into, like, I know Robbie is like he was into the storyline of it. Like he knew all the lyrics, he knew all the stories, and like what everything was based on. Like he was really like he was deep. Like he knew how the stories lined up from King Diamond to Merciful Fate and how everything interconnected and the timeline and all that shit. I didn't give a shit about any of that. I liked a few songs. I liked a lot of the playing on the King Diamond records. Like they had a drummer, that was just Snowy Shaw, sick. And they just had a lot of great players, writing that, creating that music. So it was like, it was entertaining to me, but I was not a slave to it like these dudes were. When I really kind of like was deep into it, I was like, I love Slayer, obviously because of Dave Lombardo. Like when I was 13 and I first heard South of Heaven, that was it. That dude had me hooked. I was like, Dave Lombardo is the shit. And I want to play like that. Like that's all I could think about. And then as time progressed, there was like, obviously other things that I heard that. And then when I heard Pantera for the first time, that was really like, anyone will tell you, if you ask them what my favorite metal band is and they know me, Pantera is my favorite metal band by far. They are my favorite metal band. I don't have to think about it. I don't need to give it some thought. I don't need a couple seconds. Anybody ask me that question anytime, that's the immediate response. That band changed my entire concept of how to play metal music, period. But anyway, we got off topic. I got off topic there because I branched.
No, I love it. Well, you brought up another great topic that like I've gotten into like a few weird heated arguments, or like not heated, but just like
this is the Pantera debate.
Yes. And like I'm in such a good place in my life right now. I'm so thankful for everything. I'm so happy. I feel like I'm happier than I have been for the past like 2, 3, 4 years. I feel so fucking good in my life. I want to put out positivity. I don't want to put out negativity. So I could like try and do the whole Pantera debate for views. because that shit's going wild on the internet right now. But I just don't want to because if it's like, if Pantera is your favorite band and if they have touched you in any ways, if someone wants to do something like Phil has touched all of our lives with his voice. We have all sang, like we have sang Pantera songs for years and years and years. Don't you owe a little bit of like respect? Don't you have like any loyalty to the person who gave you your life such a gift? Like, why is this a debate? The music, like, don't you want to see them? I never got to see Pantera. And I'm from Dallas. When I was like 20, I was like running around with Hell Yeah for 2-3 years. Like that was fun as fuck for me. And it's like, you know, it's like, holy shit, you know, like getting to like run around with like people from Pantera, pretty fucking fun. It's just like bigger than, it's so big and it's touched all of our lives. Why would you not support it? And like, don't you owe the artist like a little bit more respect than that? And like a little bit more loyalty?
That really, those two words are really the issue. You know what I mean? And it's like, I honestly see the different vantage points of how people feel. And I know how I feel. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I could totally see where people are upset about looking at it as Pantera because, I mean, honestly, it's not, you know, it's not really, but it's what it is. You know what I mean? I don't know if that you need to get mad about it. Mm-hmm. You may not feel like that's the way things should be. And I kind of, I understand that viewpoint. I do. You know what I mean? Like, where it's like, people are like, well, you know, you can't just replace these two guys who are so very significant and call it the same thing. Like, I understand that as a concept, but I don't think it's something that requires people need to, I don't think it's something people need to get mad about and criticize people for. It's just something that's your opinion. That's your opinion. You know, I don't know that you need to, I'm not saying you have to keep it in, but I don't think you need to be insulting about it either. You know what I mean? It's not like any of the dudes in the band suck. It's not like Zakk Wylde sucks or Charlie Benante sucks.
I know. I mean, you're getting Anthrax, you're getting Zakk Wylde. Like, again, respect. Do not have respect for these artists. Like, can't you like look at that and be like, wow, like what a gift.
Well,
and then that made me start thinking about like the point of critics. And like, I've done some critic work in the past, whatever, but I just really like doing positive things and just having conversations. But then I got into a fight with a critic and I was like, what's the point? This also brings up another thing. What is the point of a music critic? With music being as accessible as it is now, do we even still need them? These are just questions I have in my mind because I feel like I'm in such a good spot. I just like, I really care about positivity. And like, isn't the point of like being a critic to like shit on something if you don't like it? But then don't we talk about gatekeeping and don't we talk about not liking gatekeeping and people should just be able to like what they like without judgment?
Well, I feel like this. I feel like critics are there to give their honest opinion about whatever it is they're critiquing. And you either respect that person's opinion or you don't. Because there's a lot of critics. You can say, okay, well, this person likes this type of whatever. I don't like that. I don't think this guy knows what the fuck he's talking about. So why listen to him? I think that it's cool to have him out there because I feel like there are people out there who critique music who have an expansive knowledge of music and theory, and they look at it from every angle, from a fan standpoint, from a musician standpoint, from a theory standpoint, from, you know, technical proficiency to just an emotional carry, that you feel at least they have a bigger picture of looking at things and they're not narrow-minded. And you can say, hey, if this guy likes it, maybe I'll like it. At least you're open to the idea that, hey, you know, this guy convinces me, like maybe it'll open some other avenues. I'll listen to something that I didn't know about. And this guy seems to know, at least have some idea what the fuck he's talking about. I'll try it out and check out this band or whatever. I think that's why you have critics and people like there are people who are reviewing, you know, music reviewers or whatever. But obviously we also have people who are just trolls. They just say shit just to get a rise out of people, which I think is incredibly annoying. But it's more annoying the fact that those people get off on the fact that people think it's annoying. So it's like an endless cycle. So no matter how mad and annoyed you get, they love that shit. They're like, oh, you're mad and annoyed? But see, I feel those people are like, those are the people that should not be critiquing anything. They shouldn't be getting any attention whatsoever because they're not really critiquing. They're just saying asshole shit to be an asshole because they like the feeling of getting people upset, which makes them even more of an asshole. It's like, you're a double asshole. No one should be listening to you at all. Yeah. But I feel like, between that and then, the whole, the Pantera thing is there's different levels to that. It's like, I think it's really hard to choose a side on those things. Like, I understand people who are diehard fans of Vinny and Dime, and they're like, this is wrong because they're not there. Mm-hmm. I totally understand that. I understand. I could understand that feeling. Having met them both and been around them and be affected them as musicians, as people. It's a little weird, of course, to look up there and you're not seeing that. And automatically in your mind, there's going to be distinctions because as great as Zach and Charlie are, it's still not Dime and Vinny. It's not going to sound the same. It's not going to sound like Pantera sounded. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that that's a disrespectful thing. They're not trying to be disrespectful. They're going up there, to represent for people that they loved. You know what I mean? So I can respect that. You know what I mean? But I can also respect the other side where people who are dire, it's like they're upset about it a little bit. But I was just like, I think that people take things to a level that they don't need to take them to. You know what I mean? You may disagree, and that's fine. And if somebody asks you, you can say, hey, I don't really dig that they're doing it like the way they're doing it. And then just move on.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, fuck those dudes. I can't believe they're doing this shit. What the fuck? And I see all that. I'm like, you know what, too? Don't go watch it. Stay your ass home. Watch Game of Thrones.
another part of that, though, that I just want to mention and hit on that I think is so crazy. Zach Wilde, to no benefit of him, has loved Dime so passionately. I've been going to Black Label shows pretty consistently for 8 years. That man, every single show, he does a tribute to Dime. And he plays In This River at every single show I have been to no benefit of him, out of pure love out of his heart for his friend. He wrote that song.
They're absolutely best friends, and that's clear. Everybody knows that. And everybody always said,
well, how can you not support him? How can you not, he's not doing it. He didn't play In This River, at every single show I've been to for past 8 years, for monetary gain. It's out of pure love. So how can you even be oh, it's a money grab or anything like that? It's so crazy to me.
Yeah, well, people are just going to spout random shit because, they don't honestly know. And when people don't know things, they just make up their own storylines and run with it, which I think is fucked up to do. To me, that's almost kind of little freeform delusionary, basically. But, you can't just make up your own scenarios and that's the truth because you believe it is. But people do it. People literally do it all the time. They're like, okay, well, this is how it is. That's what I believe. So that's the truth. Yeah. And then if you get enough idiots together that are on that same wavelength, in the internet age, that's all it takes. Mm-hmm. All it takes is one fool. And then next thing you know, there's an army of fools saying the same dumbass shit, even though it's absolutely not the truth. It doesn't matter,
and all these idiots are saying Marilyn Manson is innocent. Idiots.
Innocent of what?
That's my funny dig because to me that's one of the things that's so fucking crazy to me. So that's another thing. I can totally get into it if you want, but that's a funny haha to me.
There's so many crazy things that go on that people believe to be true or just say at random. It's and honestly, here's the facts. Nobody but the people involved in any of these situations really 100% knows what the truth is. From a Zach Wilde point of view, everybody knows that they were best friends. Mm-hmm. Is money a part of it? I'm sure the money's nice, but it ain't as nice as having his friend with him. I'm sure, that's the case. And, if they're making money, why is that such a problem for you? What do you care?
Yeah, don't
It's
you
like,
want your favorite people in the world to make like I would
that's what they do. That's what they do
for
for
my
a
friends to
living.
make a shit ton of money. That would be fucking awesome. I would be so happy
Yeah.
for them.
Well, here's the other thing. That's what they do for a living, And it's like a lot of people, and I've seen it, like, because especially in metal, there's a lot of bands that just they don't make a lot of money. It's really hard to make a living playing heavy music, right? And you see a lot of bands struggle with it over their careers. And I've seen it in a lot of interviews. And then you see a lot of comments from people being like, well, why don't you just get a real job? And it's like, it's not those they're afraid of doing a real job. They're trying to maintain a career doing something that they love to do, but it's also what they're meant to do. So it's like when you're not doing what you're meant to do, and then you have to go back to shoveling shit, which I've done, not shit literally, but I've shoveled a lot of other stuff. It's very depressing, not because you're not rich, it's depressing because you can't do what you're meant to be doing. And it's like people kind of overlook that. It's just the money is just a subsequent effect. You need money in order to survive. You know what I mean? You need money in order to pay bills. Like that's what you need. That's just a fact of life. And now you want these people to go out and entertain all these other people and do what they're meant to be doing for weeks and months at a time and not make any money that time, and then magically come home for a couple of weeks and make enough money just to, pay their bills and pay for their rent and pay for their food and take care of their families, and then magically get back on the road. Like, how are they going to do that? How do you expect them to do that? That is ridiculous. Like, that's like telling a person, like, okay, you have a really good job working in this office. Now, what I want you to do is go out and do something else and not get paid for 11 months out of the year. Then come back and work in this office and pay all your bills for the year. It's a ridiculous concept, and it's like, you can't physically be in two places at once. You can't be on the stage not making money and at your job making money. You can't play a show in California and then go back to South Carolina and work. You know what I mean? It's like these people. Well, not these. I don't want to say it like that. I want to say there's a lot of people that just.
I mean, there's enough of them out there to where you can say these people, because it's a big opinion.
It's a big opinion, and it's just it's opinion from people who haven't had to do it. So it's easy to say a lot of things, but you don't really know the truth. You're just speculating, and that's really the biggest issue. It's like, people talk shit because they don't really know the truth. And instead of actually keeping their mouth shut and maybe trying to learn the truth, they just say whatever comes out of their face that they think, and enough people buy into it. And they're like, oh, well, everybody else is saying it too. That must be how it is, and really, other people like myself, where I'm just looking back at it going, you're a fucking idiot. Do you know that? Just keep your mouth shut. You have no idea what you're talking about. You just look stupid. Every syllable that comes out of your mouth only further confirms it. So, but I do understand the whole Pantera debate. I just feel like certain extremes are just not warranted. I can understand the feeling of being upset, and because it's a tremendous loss to have both of them gone, and just the way that things happen, it's so fucked up. And here's a side story to that. God forbid actually played the first show at that venue after Dimebag was killed there. We had a really weird. Yeah, it was fucked up. Like, and it was like, I can't explain the mood, but it was really fucked up. And then actually Doc disappeared. Like, he just took off because him and Dallas got into an argument, and Doc just took off. Like, and literally the intro was playing. Like, we're walking on stage and we still didn't know where Doc was. And literally, like, as the intro was playing, like right at the end, he ended up walking on stage and just appeared, whatever, he was walking it off or whatever. But it was just like an eerie, uncomfortable night. There was a lot of tension. Then there was the argument. The Doc disappeared. Like, it was just a fucked up night. But yeah, we played the first show back there. Obviously, we never played there again. But it was just, it was a fucked up thing that happened, and it hurt a lot of people. And obviously the feelings of sadness and anger over that incident are, I don't think, are ever going to truly dissipate because of the significance of Dime and Vinny, the impact they had on this community and at large. So it's like that sadness and that anger, I think is always going to be there. And it's going to, kind of, it's people use it as a proponent to say nasty things that they probably shouldn't say. And really, they just need to figure out a better way to deal with that, the pain that they have because of that, other than just trying to lash out and insult people. Like that's not the best way to deal with it. It's just how a lot of people do deal with it.
Yeah. I can't imagine being like the first band to play where Dime was murdered.
Yeah, it was fucked up. Like, so where
That's
I was,
a whole podcast episode. Like, holy shit.
Where I was, so right behind my drum kit was there's like a wall, and there was like still bullet holes in the wall behind me. Like it wasn't like blood or anything, but there's still bullet holes in the wall behind me. It's like, I was like, what the fuck is this? And there's a lot of thoughts that obviously run through your mind. And the crazy, so we were on tour with Machine Head when it happened, but the guy that guitar teched for us when we were on Machine Head in Europe, his wife was actually one of the people that called the police. He lived in that area, and his wife was working at the club. So literally as it was happening, she was calling him and he was telling us what was going on, so literally like it was like very, very real, to us. Cause it was like, we were kind of finding out things, I'm sure, before a lot of people were, because his wife was there and she was telling us and we were just kind of sitting there cause it went out so quick. Like my girlfriend at the time actually hit me up. She goes, "Did you know that Dime's dead?" I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" Mm-hmm. We had literally just seen him not too far before that. Like I saw Damage Plan and some other stuff. It was like in Philly or something. And I just seen him. We were doing shots, whatever. It's like, it wasn't that too far gone, but it's like, this shit was happening. And it was like, the first thing I thought was like, maybe, he drank too much or something like that happened. No one thought of anything crazy like what actually happens. So we were kind of hearing about this, and his wife was, telling him like, "Listen, I called the cops. I was working at the show. It was like crazy. They're still trying to figure out what the fuck happened." And then obviously later, all the details started coming about the kid being fucked up, and he got out of the military, he's on all pills and had been there before, had been a problem and all that kind of shit. But at the time it was just kind of like, what the,
yeah,
cause it was him getting shot. It was other Jews in the crew. Like, the whole situation was just insane, and especially in heavy music, a lot of people come up on stage, they stage dive and shit like that. It's something that a lot of bands you just kind of take in stride. Like you become to like a lot of bands enjoy it. You like, "Oh, cool, man. Dudes are coming up here, stage dive. That's awesome." And then after that shit happened, it definitely makes a lot of people think twice. And it's sad that, it takes something like that to even happen. These are not thoughts that people want to have. You want to go to a show because it's about having a good time and enjoying something fun, and, the kind of camaraderie and community that comes from being at a show, especially in heavy music, because it is a community. And a lot of people, especially in the internet age, a lot of people talk to each other. They only meet at shows or talk, that's their tribe, so to speak. And for something like that to happen, it's catastrophic, and it's so damaging on so many levels, from fans to people in other bands and like promoters. And because if you're a promoter, you got to start thinking about, holy shit, like this, that happened there. I own a club that could easily happen where I'm at. How do now I got to start thinking about this shit. It wasn't enough to worry about moshers and insurance and this, that, the other thing. And, dealing with ticket sales for heavy shows. And it's hard for every aspect of this business to be successful. And when shit like that happens, it affects everybody, in a very serious way. So yeah, it was definitely it was a messed up experience. I'm just I'm gonna say that.
I'm just shocked. I'm gonna think about that. Like after we're done, like I'm definitely gonna like continue to think about that. And I don't know, maybe we could do like would you be down to do a podcast episode just to like break down that day of how like everything about that?
I mean, I could break down that day for sure.
Well, I think we should like do a whole podcast episode about it if you're down. I mean,
Yeah.
because it is so interesting and like shootings and stuff like that, like festivals, like I think about that when I go to music festivals now.
Mm.
I fucking think about it for sure.
I always think about like, I don't think about really like shootings, but I just think about all the other shit that could happen. Because, people go to festivals and they go wild. You know what I mean? It's like they've been let out of a cage and now I'm fucking do a shitload of coke and then do a bunch of alcohol and then take some mushrooms and then whatever, they're doing shit that they wouldn't normally do because they feel free and they're trying to, in their mind, I guess, everybody's maximizing the experience. This is like something I've been waiting on, especially now as expensive it is to go out and go to a show. It's like, it's an event when people go out. They're like, man, this day is going to cost me $1,000. I'm going to do everything the fuck I want and make it the greatest day ever,
Yeah.
And it's like that shit could get out of hand. And then, we've all seen the fights that start. Then there's people that just go there for that specific intention of just getting into fights and getting into, beating people up and shit. Like, I find that shit so ridiculously stupid because, on this side of the equation, it's one of the major reasons that we stopped playing a lot of shows that we could have played in New Jersey was because of that mentality. Like where we would play a show and we couldn't get through 2 songs because some dude went and punched some little girl in the face who was just wanting to watch the show, or, 5 dudes jumped some dude just to prove a point that they were tougher than that, the dude that was minding his business or whatever the fuck is going on. Somebody trying to prove something to somebody else for all the wrong reasons. And on the other side, when you're the band playing when that shit's happening, then more and more people do not want to come to the show.
Yeah.
More and more places don't want to have you play there because they know when you play there, this is the outcome. Now, that could work in certain people's favor. Like, I feel like E-Town was a success story of that, where, like, there was always some ignorance at an E-Town show because, let's face it,
That's a great quote, and it's actually really fun. Like, I've just discovered hardcore, and I think like, it's fucking awesome. But I don't know, that just like it cracks me up. It's a very funny quote, like, but it's just like describes some like fun fuckery kind of going on. Like, there's some shit happening. And that's kind of
see, it's like we played a lot of hardcore shows because there really wasn't a metal scene, but there was like a lot of hardcore shows, Legion halls, whatever, like, whatever place that you could play. There's a lot of hardcore shows. And that's what we ended up playing. But from my personal standpoint, and I'm not going to say I'm the only one that agrees this, but I'm going to say for me, I was never a person that was into hardcore music.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we started playing with hardcore bands, initially, the concepts to me seems awesome because it was all about, it's hardcore family, it's hardcore community. And they would, every dude from every hardcore band had the same speech, you know what I mean? About unity, brotherhood, and all this shit. And then the more hardcore shows I started to play, I started to see how most of that is bullshit. There ain't no unity. It's like, what's that Furified song? Every man for himself. People just beating people up for just being alive. They're like, you're alive. You're at the show. I'm at the show. That means you got to go. And I was like,
yeah.
What happened to the unity? I think this is bullshit. And I feel like there's some people, just like anything else, where they really believe that and they really live that shit. I've experienced that side of it too, where there's dudes in hardcore bands that I'm friends with, and I was like, this motherfucker's legit. Like Scott from Terror, that dude's legit. Like he preaches that shit, but he lives that shit. He ain't going out trying to fuck with people for just being around or something like that. Like he he supports other bands. He supports other people in the scene. Like he preaches that shit, but he lives that shit. There's a lot of other people. They preach all that shit in their songs and talk about taking care of this and their own and brotherhood and shit. And they're the most ignorant motherfuckers that you will ever meet because they don't believe in any of that shit. They say it because that's what's expected of them to say. And then they go out and live the complete opposite. You know, they ain't tolerant of anybody. You know what I mean? If you ain't in their 5-10 man crew or whatever crew they're with, they're about beating your ass because you're just there. You know what I mean? Like, where's the brotherhood there? Where's the unity? Where's the acceptance? You know, that's not acceptance. That's the opposite of all those things. But, you know, and that kind of ruined hardcore for me.
It's a very funny point, by the way. It's very, like, I haven't thought about that. And it's actually,
it's funny because it's true.
Yeah.
Most of the funniest stuff is true stuff. You know?
That's my sense of humor. It's very like dry and dark and selfish. If something's awful, I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. Like, oh, it just doesn't get better than this. This is just if something's fucking awful, I'm like, that's the best thing that's ever happened. Isn't that great? It's just great. God.
Well,
wow.
You know, that for me kind of like, my other thing was a lot of hardcore music and punk music. Like, I know it was about the message and the energy, but the record sounded like crap. And I was the dude who's like, I can't listen to a record that sounds like shit. Like, I just can't. That was not my bag. Like, John is like the bass player for God Forbid. You know, he liked a lot of Black Flag and different things. He's like, yo, man, just check this out. I started listening to it. I'm like, nope, can't do it. Record sounds like shit. I don't even care what they're saying. Guitar sound, trash. Drums sound like garbage cans. I'm not with it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not, you know, so that turned me off to a lot of it. And then there were certain bands, like I liked Marauder. I mean, they draw a lot of that same crowd, but I've always felt like they wrote some really good stuff, but the record sounded good. They put some thought into the songs. Like, I felt like, yo, this shit's pretty dope. Or like Leeway, which is like a hardcore band, but I thought they were kind of more like, they were almost like an early metalcore band because their sound was very metallic and they wrote riffier riffs and like, but they came from the similar situation. They came from a hardcore scene. That's, you know, they were surrounded by hardcore dudes. But I love some Leeway because the shit sounded good. You know what I mean? But there's a lot of the other shows like, man, people put on those records. I'm like, can't do it. And I don't care. And people are like, yo, it's about the message, man. It's about the energy. I was like, you know what my energy is? Dog shit. Because this record sounds like dog shit. That's the energy I'm getting. Dog shit energy.
That's
you know? I'm not with that. I'm not with dog shit energy.
Direct quote right there. Direct quote.
You put that on a t-shirt. I'm not with dog shit energy. I'll write that one down somewhere.
Yeah, there you go. I just want to take the opportunity because God Forbid is such a big band to so many people. And it's kind of an honor to be talking to you. So I just want to make sure I get in.
Flattered.
Hey, it's good. I mean, you're just like, you know, it's nice to be loved by everyone, isn't it? But I just want to do good by the fans and just kind of run through some things, give them some insight. I think a good way to do that is to just talk real quick and like maybe ask you, okay, I'll say like, okay, album from this year, like what did that album mean to you? What was going on in your life or something like that? If you could just say like, something about that album of like what you guys were working on or like why you cared about it or something like that. Does that sound good to you?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So first album was Reject the Sickness, right?
I could sum that up pretty easy. Well, that wasn't the first. That was the first full length album.
Okay. Got it.
Right before that, we did Out of Misery, which was like an EP. That was the first God Forbid recording. Now, technically, the guys that are in God Forbid were together, but the band wasn't called God Forbid yet. Okay. So there is recordings out there, pre-God Forbid recordings. But we won't talk about that. Reject the Sickness was basically how big a sword can we bring to a sword fight? Because like it was like I know me, Doc, and Dallas, we were just drinking Mountain Dew in outrageous amounts. Like the caffeine and sugar intake was on a level that was ridiculous. So we were literally just yelling ideas like numbers of patterns and trying to basically make how crazy can we make this record and how heavy can we make it? And I was at the point where I started thinking crazy, like how fast can I play here? How many, how much double kick can I put in this part? How crazy can I go, over what we're doing and how extreme can we, because we were listening to a lot of crazy stuff. Started listening to a lot of Meshuggah, and a lot of people weren't really like into Meshuggah at that point. Like you're talking like this, like 1999, 98. So a lot of people weren't really on board with that shit yet. But we're listening to a lot of Suffocation, Dying Fetus. I was loving some Deflesh and Brutal Truth. That used to be my shit. I was like, Brutal Truth is so crazy. Like, I want to write some crazy shit like that. They're just chaotic madness all the time. Brutal Truth was all over the place. It was like heavy. It was kind of like pre-Dillinger, but I think in some ways more extreme because they were doing like a lot of straight up death metal-y stuff with crazy screams and different voicings. And then they would break into just, Brutal Truth is crazy. It's crazy. Crazy stuff. But that record, that's pretty much what it was. I feel like it was like, how much can we do? How much crazy stuff can we do? How heavy can we make it? And I think that's pretty much what was going on through everybody's head was a lot of energy and anger. Pretty much,
All brought on by Mountain Dew, just Mountain Dew madness.
Mountain Dew, caffeine. Byron was going through a lot of shit actually at that time. Like a lot of crazy things happened. And then there's a song called Ashes of Humanity. It's about his stepfather had passed away. So, he was going through a lot of emotional shit. And Byron's go-to emotion in any situation is anger. So, which when you listen to, God forbid, songs, you listen to him screaming, it doesn't sound like he's not pissed off. You know what I mean? So that was his outlet, and I think for, like me and Doc and Dallas, it was kind of like, it was like a skill developing record. Like, all right, we're starting to get these skills and we're starting to be we've been playing together more now. We're starting to be capable of these different things. Let's just fucking do it all the time, and that's pretty much the way that record came out.
Awesome. Love it. Okay. Determination.
Determination.
Was it about being determined?
I think I don't think so. Determination, like, actually is like, well, originally Central Media was going to put out Reject the Sickness, and then some things happened and they wanted a new record. So we had just got done doing Reject the Sickness not too far previous. Mm-hmm. And then it was just like, all right, let's write Determination. Determination was when I think everybody started thinking about how to write better songs. Because if you listen to Determination, it's a lot more melodic and a lot more tasteful than Reject the Sickness is. Reject the Sickness is like brutality. It's like, how much can we punch you in the face pretty much all the time? And then Determination, it was like, all right, now let's add some more like dynamics and drama to the situation. And that's when the long songs really started coming into play, because like, all right, we have more to say. How are we going to say it? And personally, I was learning more about drums and how to make it more musical, paying more attention to guitar parts, like the musicality of the drums on Determination is a lot different. Like I actually have things tuned to what they were tuned to on guitars. So like toms were tuned different, kick drums tuned different. I started using more cymbals to match, melodic lines and add accents and coloration to things. And I think we're all doing that. There's more harmonies, more riffs over riffs. You know what I mean? It's not just like dun, 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 dun. There's always, even on the heaviest parts, there's always more going on. And it was kind of like, all right, now we're starting to write songs,
Mm-hmm. And Gone Forever.
Gone Forever. I think was like, it was the beginning of a certain, it was the beginning of the realization that everybody in this band had certain skills. And it was also tied to this sort of like frustration of doing what we were just talking about before. Like me, I was working a landscaping job. So I would work 10, 11 hours a day and then go straight to rehearsal, still covered in like mulch and dirt and 11 hours worth of summer sweat, and then go and rehearse for 2, 3 hours, playing drums, doing this brutally crazy shit. And at the time, we were trying to increase the amount of hours that, we were writing and rehearsing. So there was a lot of push and pull and a lot of aggravation. I was just fatigued, and it made retaining shit super hard. Like when your body and your mind is just done, like we would write cool stuff, and the next day I'd have to go over it like 1,000 times again because my body and my mind is kaput. It's like, so, and obviously that frustrated everybody else because they're like, dude, you don't remember when we played exact like this? We had a fucking, Yeah. And it's like, no, I don't. I just worked another 11-hour shift in the fucking 100-degree heat, shoveling shit. And then I came in here to deal with your fucking attitude. And then the volatility would rise. But ultimately, it was getting to that juncture where we had played around each other long enough to where now we're starting to get like, you start saying like, this is our sound. This is like only us, involved in this. It's not like a mirror of these 1,000 other bands or whatever. This is distinctly our stuff that we're doing. And then of course we got the first mix back from Colin Richardson, and everybody just grinned ear to ear. And all the hostility kind of went down after that for a while, at least. And then, of course, all the other things happened. We did our first Machine Head tour. That led right into Ozfest, which at that time was still the full 10 and a half weeks. So it was like the full summer you were gone. And then right out of that, we went to Europe with Machine Head for another 2.5 months. So it's like Gone Forever came out, and then we were gone for like 7 months, straight. Yeah, and everything was kind of like going well, we were selling more records. A lot more people were getting into the band, and it seemed like everything was kind of like hitting the right way. Everything was firing. All the cylinders were firing at the time.
And Constitution of Treason. Those are my favorite lyrics. Like my favorite lyrics are on that album.
The Constitution, I felt like what was going on there was some of the greatest and worst experiences that I've ever had writing a record. It was great because that's all we did. It was the first time where, I wasn't really working or doing anything. All I did was play drums, and all we did was work on that record. All of us constantly putting in hours of effort. So it was like, man, we can really make like a legit, fantastic album because this is all we're putting our energy into. So there's a lot of great things about that album that I love. I think that we all do. But man, it's also where you realize when that's all you're doing and you're around each other on tour, then you're around each other during that whole process all the time for hours, all the time. Woo! It gets hot. It gets hot in the writing room, Yeah. It gets snippy. And it's hard, It's like that's the thing that people don't understand a lot about being in a band. It's like when you have a lot of dudes, and everybody in the band had a lot of similar influences and different influences, and was coming from different places. Almost literally everything. Like we had a lot of things we agreed about as far as like the way things sounded, or this was heavy enough, or this pattern was the right pattern, or whatever. And then there was a lot of disagreements, a lot, because we were all kind of coming from these different areas. And then it's like, anything creative where it's like you're bringing these ideas. It's like putting your soul out there for somebody to shit on. You know what I mean? And then it's like, when you do get shit on, and I know, people always like to say, oh, it's just about the best idea. Well, that may be true in the end. But while it's going on, it's about your idea not getting shit on, So then that's when the arguments happen. Then eventually, somewhere along the line, usually what happens is you'll be jamming something, and then there'll be like a break in it, it'll click. You know what I mean? Everybody go, oh, that's what it should be. When that happens, then the tension kind of resolves. Everybody feels better. The song gets finished, and you're like, man, that sounds fucking dope. And that's kind of like the closure, the release, But writing that record had a lot of that. It was a lot of tension, and then a little bit of release. And a lot of tension, but I think, and I've said this many times, overall, one of the hugest catalysts of this band, and I think better heard on that album than any other album, is the moody and volatility of this band is what created the best music. And it's not, as I say this, like, it's not like we just sat around just fighting all day, every day. We had a lot of funny, great moments because all the dudes are like funny and got really great personalities and have like all these interesting and comedic quirks that you get to learn about. But when we were volatile, it was severe. You know what I mean? And there's bands that know us that probably will attest to this. When we were volatile, it was fucking bad. Like, because there was like no holds barred. People say terrible things to each other. Especially, again, we had brothers in the band. So it was like some of them arguments, it was just like, whoo. Like, we literally pulled over at one point, and the two of them got out of the van. 3:00 in the afternoon, we pulled over on the side of the road and let them fight for like 15 minutes. And then got back in the van, and me and Byron and John were sitting on the side of the van drinking beers, watching these two fight outside the van. We're like, fuck it, man. It's like, it's gonna happen sooner or later. We might as well let's get it on, let's get it over with. Say, go ahead and get it on.
That's funny.
So, that's the epitome of Constitution. It's a great record, moody and volatile, and that record speaks that shit in volumes if you listen to it. It's very dark, but it's also very like groovy and energetic.
I think it's beautiful, and the introspection of it all is so deep. That's what I love about it.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. I'll say that.
Yeah.
It's the benefit too of being around a lot of dudes that they have a lot of things going on underneath the surface. And when we started writing at that point, it was coming out, which is great because you get to participate in that, and, getting to know that much about a group of people and having that kind of energy in a room is incredible. But when it's bad, it is horribly, horribly bad.
Sounds like any family, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can't, if you want the payoff, you got to put into work, and it ain't always easy,
Absolutely. And what about Earthblood?
Earthblood, I felt like that record for me, and I felt like this is like the culmination of being at the top of your game in a certain writing aspect. Like, the playing on that record is ridiculous. Like, some of the stuff I played on that record, I was like, I don't know what I was thinking. This shit's crazy. Like, it's some of it, people think like, oh, it sounds easy. It's not. A lot of the stuff on that record is really hard to play. Like, it's really hard to play, but it's also done. Everything I felt like on the album is done very meticulously. But there's so many levels of shit on that record. Like, that is the epitome of the 6 and 7 minute song. That album has multiple 6 and 7 minute songs, and they're all over from the heaviest, the heavy, to the most melodic and dramatic and dark, like really ambient and open. Then there's like blast beats and sections. Like, it was literally, that record was all over the place. Like, let's just showcase that we can literally do whatever we want. And I felt like on that record, we 100% did that and did it pretty well. Like there's no part of that record where I'm like, we did this specific aspect of this shitty. Because there's like sections that are very like rock and roll kind of sections, very Foo Fighter-ish. They're very like Slipknot types of sections. There's very like Opethy types of sections on there. There's very straight up thrash types of sections. We're all trying to do all these things from all these types of music and blend it into an album. And I think that we did that pretty competently. But again, the downtimes, the aggression was at an all-time high. At an all-time high. And that was saying a lot. But I felt like most of us, it was basically, I think, at this time where, as sad as it was, we started to understand like Dallas had set himself apart from the rest of us. And it was palpable. You know what I mean? Like we'd be like jamming in the basement. The rest of us be down in the basement, writing, jamming, smiling, cracking jokes and shit. And that dude would like walk in the basement and then it'd just be like, it was like one of those scenes from a show, like where somebody walks in and like the darkness comes in with them and the light just dissipates and disappears. And it was like, ugh. And he was in a bad mood a lot, man, and it was just like, and you couldn't really figure out why he was, feeling the way he was feeling. And he wasn't really saying it. He would just act out, or he'd come downstairs and he'd have like one piece of a riff, like not even like, it'd be like 3 notes or something. And he'd play the 3 notes and be like, all right, you guys finish this. And he'd just dip off. It'd be like, who is this dude? So, but I felt like it was a great times, like a great showcase for everybody's individual abilities as well as the collective coming together to just really make some amazing music. But, once again, the underlying volatility was the constant.
Got it. Yeah. So, as we discussed, my sense of humor. So it's just wonderful. It's just great. It's wonderful. It's just fantastic.
It's like everybody's soul was dying. That's fantastic.
Great. Fantastic. I love it so much. There you go. Okay. And the album we all know about, Equilibrium.
Yeah.
Frustration?
I think.
I mean, I can't wait for this. You've been so honest about everything so far. I'm like, well, I can't wait for this one. Like, ooh.
Well, I think like the whole sequence of writing that album was really weird because there's a lot of personal shit going on. It was also the station of the band and the grand architecture. Like we had become very stagnant. We hadn't put out a record. Century Media did not re-sign us. So we were kind of just like floating in limbo for like a while. And then Victory ended up signing us before we did that record. And in the interim, like in between the time, we have been writing, like we have a ton of unreleased shit that's not ever seen the light of day, but we were writing and practicing all that time. But there was like a lot of personal strife. And then, people started looking at other things that they want to do and started like, it was kind of distracting. And then, there was just so much going on that was like, not necessarily negative, but it wasn't positive either. And it was sort of like middle of the road. And when your life is kind of like middle of the road limbo, everything sucks. Like it doesn't have to suck for it to even suck. You know what I mean? Like this doesn't really suck. Like it's vanilla ice cream. Doesn't really suck, but I really want cookies and cream. This is bullshit.
Yeah.
That kind of feeling, but just on a, obviously a much larger scale. Mm-hmm. But again, I felt like this was also at a point where we had been doing this for a very long time and we had very specific designs in mind and we knew how to work well with each other and get certain things out of each other to where like you listen to that record, there's people that be like, oh, it's not that heavy. It's 2 commercials. Go listen to that record. There is some of the heaviest shit that was ever written is on that record. there's some
Same
stuff
people are complaining about Pantera now. What?
I mean, there's people that are always going to complain no matter what you do.
I know. Just kidding. Had to one more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, and I recently had an interview. I said this on with Alex Haber. I said, listen, man, it's just like, it was definitely an undertow where I felt like everybody was just kind of like, we're capable of so much, but it doesn't feel like, you feel just frustrated because like, it feels like no matter what you do or how you do it, like people don't respect it or not going to acknowledge it. You know what I mean? Like you just like after Earth's Blood was like a phenomenal record, but I felt like it just was too over people's heads and they didn't really get it. And then by the time people started getting it, the band was broken up.
Yeah.
I think Equilibrium kind of the same way, because after those albums came out and the style and the fashion and the tonality in which they were done, a lot of bands started doing albums like those that had more textures and a little bit more dynamics, and they were trying to incorporate more aspects of different kinds of metal into one album, which I feel like that's what we did. But that sense of stagnancy that is sort of like depleting your confidence, and it's like you're just fighting against the tide all the time. You feel like you're just ice skating uphill. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like I'm just kind of like you're just pedaling in place, and no matter how hard you struggle or how fast you try to skate, you're just right in that one spot. And ultimately, that's what broke the band down. I think when we did that record, it was like, all right, here's everything that we can do, and we're doing it well. And if you don't acknowledge this, I don't know what the fuck to say. Like, what more can we do? And the answer was nothing. There was nothing more for us to really do. At that point, it's like, we literally put everything into right. There's melody, there's catchy stuff, there's groove, there's thrash, it's heavy, there's blast beats, there's everything that you could do on a fucking metal record. There's shredding out the wazoo, crazy tempos, double kick shit all over the place, slow grooves, whatever you want, it's on this record. What now? And everybody's like, okay, well, it's good. And then that was it. It's just like, all right, well, we didn't move the meter at all. I mean, it's just like same place. And it's like, okay, well, what the fuck are we doing here?
Yeah.
It clearly doesn't matter, how good we write songs or how talented we are. Whatever the thing that's stopping us from moving forward has nothing to do with the music. That is clear. So what is it? Whatever it is, we can't change it now. Like, I don't know how
Doc's
to change it.
Talked about it a little bit. I remember him talking about it like a few years ago. And he has his opinion, which I don't even know if I need to say it or whatever. Do you have that same opinion of like why it really didn't work out for you guys?
Well, I mean,
because it's like it's not like that anymore, and it's very different now than it used to be, even like a bunch of years ago. We've progressed so much.
I really feel like it's a combination of things.
That, so I just didn't know if you had the same opinion.
I have similar opinions. Ultimately, my opinion is this. Basically, the reason that God forbid didn't have more success or wasn't a bigger band had nothing to do with anything musically that we did. I think it had, other than the fact that the band progressed from every album. Like, no album sounds just like the album previous to it, which often throws a lot of fans off. So we would gain a lot of new fans and then lose a lot of fans, I guess, on some level. And then they'd come back because they'd realize, like, hey, it's still God forbid or whatever. But largely, like, my opinion is there are some things that are very easy to trace to why we weren't a bigger band. One was a lot of very specific decisions the band made in the way that we carried ourselves or admitted our frustration were not beneficial to the band getting bigger. The other part of the equation is that we could never seem to fully get like our behind the scenes team to all match up and be on the same page. Like, our manager at the time wasn't on the same page with our agent, wasn't on the same page. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to have a successful band, everything has to basically be going in your favor. Like, you have to be delivering great music. You have to deliver live. You have to have management that can get you the things that you want to get. You got to have a booking agent that can get you the things you want to get. They have to believe as a total group that they can achieve those things and then actually do it, which is pretty difficult when you think about it. It's difficult to have all those things in your favor, all those people with a like-minded purpose and idea of what the band needs to do and how to accomplish it. And from the band to the agents to the management, there was very few periods of time in our career where that was the case. There was like little pieces of time where like, okay, shit's going good. And then it would like fall off. Then shit's going good and it would fall, because we never had that constant momentum of all those things working at the same time, from band to agent to manager to whatever, to label. Everybody wasn't on the same page all that through enough of that time to really push the band to be bigger. It happened enough to get to the band where it was, which was liked by a lot of people, but not enough people to take that final step to where, like, if we'd have got just a little bit bigger, then things would have probably been a lot better. Because once that last step we needed to take was the real step that we needed to take, and we just couldn't quite get there for all those reasons that I mentioned. Then there's the intangible factors, that we've all talked about. Could we have done this different? Could we have done this tour different? Should we have not done this tour? Is it a racial thing? Like, if everybody was white, God forbid, would the band be bigger? The answer is yes. No, I'm just kidding. But I've said that a lot, but I really don't know. I mean, honestly, no one knows. No one has an answer to that. But could it be? Sure, it could be. Maybe that's the case. Maybe it's not the case. There's no way to prove those things. But I think the primary thing is that you have to take personal responsibility on some level. Like, there's just tons of decisions that we probably could have made better, that would have made things go better. We could have done better or been more diligent in working with our manager at the time or our agent, whatever the case may be, to find a better way to share our views or whatever it was, or make them understand things in a better way, to rally them to our side, or whatever communication breakdown was happening in that grand scheme of things. There's 1,000 possible better ways that it could have went. But ultimately, there's between that and the intangible things, there's no way to know, you can only guess. But I found that if you sit there and try to dwell on that, one, it just drives you crazy. Two, you're never going to really know the answers, and then there's always tons of color, conspiracies, this person maybe didn't like the band, was pissed off, and then they were out to get you and whatever, all that kind of shit. Now, if that was happening, I really don't know about it. I always felt like, God forbid, it was the band that all other bands liked, but it didn't translate to the public view enough. So there was tons of people behind the scenes that liked the band, but it was never enough to get us over the final hump.
Yeah.
So, you got to take personal responsibility. So, we made a lot of questionable decisions, to say the least. And the way we dealt with the volatility and tensions of the band, I'm sure radiated, like I said, radiated outwardly. And that made it, not any better for anybody that was working with us, I'm sure, and that's why the band didn't get any bigger. Is that the case? I don't know. Because you see, there's plenty of bands that had assholes in the band. They treated people that worked for them like shit, and they still got huge. So, some of it's just dumb luck. And we didn't have the right amount of dumb luck, on our side either, I guess. So there you go.
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah. So I think a good way to wrap it up is to kind of ask, so I really like your attitude, and I really appreciate like talk. I know we're both like, oh my god.
Oh my God. I'm sitting on a drum stool too. And this thing says,
oh, I'm so
and
sorry.
it's like,
We'll wrap
it's
it
like
up.
my,
We'll wrap it up. Yeah. This is part of your training. I'm helping you train.
yes, this is the longest I've spent behind here.
I know. This is like a 3 hour. I haven't done a 3 hour long podcast episode in a while.
I have rented a lot.
Right.
So there's that.
Yeah. So I think a good way to kind of like wrap this up is, and I really like your attitude and appreciate, like, I'm in a really great spot in my life. And I really appreciate people who are honest and real and just real about things. And it seems like you're in a very good place and you have very good understanding of all of it, of this like really big time in your life. So do you look back on it positively? Is it more of a positive than a negative?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because you're very, you're very real. So I think people would be wondering,
I think,
because you're very real and you tell the truth about all of it. So I'm like, okay, but so
I think the negative feelings, initially after the band kind of broke up or whatever you want to call it, hiatus or whatever. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of things going on at the time. So like I was in a relationship for like almost 10 years. So that actually broke up basically the same time as the band broke up. So I was just, my whole life was fucked up. Like I was like, all right, fuck it. I just don't care about anything anymore. So I kind of languished in that for a little bit. And of course, when you have negative feelings that impactful, going along with the concept of kind of like sort of re-identifying who you are and what you're supposed to do, because everything that you had done for like the past almost 20 years now it's just done. It's gone. Especially at that point in life, because like at this point, I was like, I guess like, like 35 or 36, somewhere around like that. So it's like, the majority of my young life is now destroyed. You know what I mean? Like that's over. This is my thinking then. Like I just, shit out 15, 16 years of my life. And that's like, the nook and cranny of your youth, 23 to 37 kind of area. Like that's when you're, living life. And I felt an incredible breakdown because I just felt like, you know what? Everything in life is shitting on me right now. Like there's just nothing for me. Like what am I going to do now? Like, what do I want to do? Is anything going to be in my life what this was in my life? And the answer is no. I mean, like nothing can replace that. You know what I mean? As far as its impact on my life, there's just different things that became a part of my life that I enjoy tremendously. And I'm thankful to be able to do. So it's like, once you find you kind of repurpose yourself, which it takes different things. It takes different people, different amount of time to figure that out. But that interim time when you're trying to like deal with all that shit, yeah, of course you feel like shit, like everything is terrible at that stage in the game. That's just how you feel. Like, at least that's how I felt. I was like, everything is shitty, and there was nothing that anybody could say or, do to really make me feel better. It's not like I just sat around crying all day. Mostly I was just angry and I drank a lot more and a lot of other things, distracted myself with, random girls and booze and whatever to just like basically not cope with the realization of what was going on. It's kind of like a lot of distractions. And I sort of drowned myself in that and just kind of tried to keep the misery at bay as long as I could. And then eventually I just kind of said, fuck, I what do I want to do? And basically sort of like a random series of events sort of happened. Our old sound guy was doing a record with this local band, some guys that I knew, and he asked me to come in and help him produce it. He's like, I need somebody, because like he couldn't talk to band dudes and get them through things. So I went and helped him and I ended up producing this record. And he's like, yo, maybe you should do that. You're kind of good at it. So I ended up working at a studio in Manhattan for a while. was working with a lot of different bands. I started like partnering up with some people, throwing shows, helping out bands and younger bands in the scene, try to get them, put shows together for local bands to give, talk to guys there who are just starting out and doing it. And started producing albums, 8 or 9 albums, 10 albums back to back. I was going out to shows all the time, looking at younger guys, younger bands' talent, just trying to help out. I started doing the Ride for Dime stuff for Read on the East Coast. So I was doing those shows and helping out. And then I got lucky and I started getting a lot of studio drum work, doing a lot of just random shit from like really commercial, like Oscar Mayer Wiener type shit to like gospel stuff. I actually did some country stuff, which kind of like opened my mind to a whole nother capacity. Like, you know what you need to do? Be a more well-rounded player. So I started practicing other styles more, looking at jazz, country, and blues, and trying to just develop other sets of skills that were more marketable for studio work. So, and I got lucky. I got a lot of different gigs doing that over time. And, then I started to do a lot of other things. I taught myself how to build small engines. I started learning Italian, just a bunch of stuff. Like, you know what? I'm looking at this shit the wrong way. I'm sitting here down in the dumps when I could be doing this. I could be teaching myself that. I could be doing all these things that I've in the mind. Like, you always have these things like, I want to do this, I want to do that. And then you make up a bunch of excuses because life gets in the way. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. And I realized like, okay, well, now I don't have those excuses. My relationship went to crap. I lost all my money, lost my condo. She took everything. Okay, that's fine. Band's over, 17 years, 16 years. All right, gotta unpack that and just deal with it. But you know what? I can do this. I can still do studio work. I can work with these bands, and I'm actually pretty fucking good at it. Let me pursue this more. Let me pursue that more. And then I noticed the more I kept pursuing these things I wanted to do, other opportunities started to pop up. Then the Disciples of Verity thing happened. I got into that, and Glover kind of like, brought a new texture to that and brought some emotion that convinced me to kind of be a part of that. And then I ended up talking to Joe at some random sequence of events, just talking on Instagram. And, it was basically just changing my mindset and realizing that it wasn't the fucking end of the world and that I was capable of doing a lot of other things if I just took the initiative to go do them and not procrastinate. And that just everything I did opened up another door, opened up another opportunity. And it's still happening now. Other opportunities keep coming in. But that's what I found out. It's like you go through that period of misery, which I don't care who you are. When shit like that happens in your life, I don't care how strong you are. I don't care where your mental stability is. That shit will break you down to a level that is incomprehensible. Like when you're going through it, you don't know what the fuck has happened to you, but it's really bad. You're like, you just feel low. That's the best way I can explain it. I felt so fucking low, like just worthless. Like I'm the shittiest piece of shit. Life sucks. I'm so low, so depressing. You're like, yeah, that's the shit I'm talking about. But and then eventually, if you can break through that and endure it long enough and get to the mindset where like, hey, you did something. Like how many people get to do what I've done and get to travel around the world and make albums? Like how many people have tried to do that and failed? Like the success rate, even on our level of success is, I'd say if you added up all the bands, it's definitely less than 2% of bands achieve that much success.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you got to be appreciative of that. It's just hard to be in the moment appreciative. You're kind of just like, fuck. And then, when you look back, you're like, man, I did a lot of fucking really great things. I met a lot of really great people that I'm still friends with, that I still have connections with, that I still see. I've done a lot of things that people only dreamed about doing, playing in front of thousands of people, signing autographs, whatever it is, you know what I mean? The opportunities of things that I've been able to achieve and been able to done that are pretty much cemented in history now. Like people can't, there's not a lot of people that can say that, like I'm in a small percentage, I'm in a small group, and I'm a black dude that plays metal. So I'm in a even smaller group of a super small group. I'm in like the 0.00001 percentile of black dudes and metal that have achieved success. That's a small group. There's like 12 of us. You know what I mean? So you start looking at it, that aspect, you're kind of like, shit. I ain't Sammy Davis Jr. or no shit like that, but I accomplished some things, Yeah. So yeah, I mean, that's, in all honesty, that's pretty much what it was. I felt like really the shittiest shit, lowest shit in the world. And then little by little, you start to crawl out of that place and just, hopefully change your mind about things. And then let that change of mind, better things happen. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my friends is going through that right now. Like she's just in such a dark place. And I talked to her a few days ago and I was like, well, we're not staying here. Here sucks. So what do you want to do? Like, this is horrible. This sucks. So we're not staying here. So we're getting out of this. We don't like this. So what are you going to do? Kudos to you for doing that. Like, good for you.
Thank you.
Man. I mean, it's fucking life. Like, no one comes out unscathed. No one comes,
That is 100%. Well, to be fair, some people do come out unscathed. Just as shitty as it is for some people, as life works, there's people at the other end of the spectrum who just lead a charmed life. They literally and I had some friends like that who literally, they're like Mr. Magoo. They just fucking fall ass backwards into great opportunities all the time, never struggled, just their life is on coast. And like, that's just how it is, I mean, I can't say that I can identify with that because literally pretty much my entire life has been fighting for every inch the entire time. So I don't really know about that charmed life, but that's how life works. That's the balance. That's the yin and yang of it. There's people who have the shittiest of shit lives, no matter what they do. And then there's people who have the best of best lives, no matter what they do. And then there's all of us in between who are getting like a little bit of both or, some variation of both. And, I've had my variation of both. And fortunately, a lot more of it has been positive than when in those moments you recognize. But now I'm at least in a position to where I do recognize how much of my life has been overall pretty fucking positive. Like there's been some shitty times, of course, like really where I felt like really, really like I was thinking to myself, I can't feel any worse than this. And then something else happened. I was like, oh, wait, yes, I can feel worse. But, I've since come to realize like, man, I've led a pretty fucking good life, and I'm still living a pretty good life. So overall, it's like, it's hard to get over, but when it happens, you're excited that you can at least have that outlook now. Like I have a bigger picture than just living in that moment of darkness,